All right, guys, what is going on? It is Monday night after the Monday night game, guys. And of course, after every single Monday night, you know what we like to do. I like to go live. I like to discuss what I got right and what I got wrong for the week in fantasy football that we just had, guys. I'm going to go ahead and adjust the brightness on my sign right here. There we go. I think that should be a little bit more visually appealing to y'all in the live stream. But, God, what an embarrassing loss for Buffalo, to be honest with you guys. I don't want to sugarcoat that one. That was an embarrassing loss, and there was a lot of fantasy football fallout from that type of loss from the Buffalo Bills. And we'll discuss that a little bit more a little bit later because you know what it is. I'm going through what I got right and what I got wrong in Week 10 fantasy football, guys. I do the segment every single week after the Monday night game so we can reassess and reevaluate the takes that I had and the analysis approach that I had because I want to be honest with you guys and I want to be transparent. And the reason it's live is for two reasons. Number one, because if I had bad takes that affected you, feel free to put them in the chat below. That's the reason it's live. Air your grievances, do what you got to do for sure. And the number two is because I think that there's really no path forward if we can't be honest about, if I can't be honest with you guys. So, that's a huge thing for me is being transparent with my audience. So if you appreciate the segment, please go down there, drop a like on this live stream, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So let's go ahead and just get into what I got right and wrong this week. So in this particular week, I just want to start out with a guy that I said leading up to the week, this is a perfect buy low trade target right here. When you look at this guy's past couple weeks, they were so underwhelming. And last week, they took on the Baltimore Ravens. And it was, obviously the Seahawks got crushed in that matchup versus the Ravens. And the week prior to that, the opponent was not nearly as tough as the Baltimore Ravens was. And he still had a bad week. And there was a lot of reasons for it. And the guy I'm talking about, obviously, is Kenneth Walker, if you do not know who I'm talking about. So Kenneth Walker, I called him a buy low trade target heading into Week 10, and I actually caught a lot of flack for that take. I was actually a little bit surprised. I kind of thought that a lot of people would be on board with trading for Kenneth Walker since he had been a really good fantasy player basically up to that point this season. And the week before the Ravens blowout, because the Ravens blowout, it's like that's a blowout. Like I always say this on this channel, you can simply never just go into a situation on the next week and say, well, this player didn't perform well last week and they got blown out. And that's what I'm going to use my fantasy analysis on. You can't do that. Blowout games, you can't analyze either the winning team or the losing team very well because a lot of things go very strangely that they don't go that way typically in most NFL games. So that week was that week. But the week prior to that particular week, I said, listen, Kenneth Walker was coming into that week injured. He was injured in that game. He was injured in that week of practice. He actually missed a bunch of practice time leading into the week. And Zach Charbonnet got, I think, the most touches in the entire season for himself. So a lot of people were worried. Is this the Zach Charbonnet takeover? And I said, Kenneth Walker's a fantastic buy low candidate right now. The guy is coming into the next week as well. Seattle's got a very good opponent. Obviously, they took on Washington this week. And even though it was a closer game than I expected, and I got that wrong, I thought the Seahawks were going to blow them out of the water. Like, I got that one for sure wrong. But they still ended up winning the game, obviously. And Kenneth Walker was a massive part of that. Well, they've got the Rams next week. Kenneth Walker's got another good week lined up for him. Kenneth Walker, I really loved the trade target that Kenneth Walker was this week. He was a fantastic trade target. And the reality is that with a guy like this who's clearly been one of the better fantasy football running backs in a year where there's lots of running backs that are just in committee backfields. And that's really the direction the NFL is heading in, guys. This is what makes wide receivers more and more important. And I actually did a video about the importance evolving at the wide receiver position in fantasy football. I actually did a video about that over the offseason. because the reality is there's a lot of rules that are being slanted towards wide receivers and quarterbacks specifically. And really the only rules that are, you know, helping the wide receivers and the running back and the quarterbacks, they're actually not really helping the running backs. The running back position is becoming more and more saturated in fantasy football because of the committee backfield that teams like to run. Kenneth Walker this season has been one of the lone bright spots at the running back position, and you have to take advantage of that in fantasy football. I hope you bought him. Honestly, I really liked that take at the time, and I like it even more today. So the next thing that got to get into something I got wrong, and this is perfectly aligned with trade targets, because I've said this, I've kind of tooted my own horn on buy low trade videos that I've done this year. I've gotten a lot right. I mean, I've gotten tons of them right this year. It's been a good year for me as far as analyzing buy low trade targets go. Obviously, I'm not perfect on that, and I never will claim to be perfect at analyzing in fantasy football on any level, not just buy lows, on any single level. I won't claim to be the perfect analyzer in all things fantasy. But this one hurts really bad. A couple weeks ago, I think it was actually either the last week of September or the first week of October. I called Tony Pollard a buy low trade target. And I said, at the time, this is the type of guy who this guy went off for the first several weeks in fantasy football. He was the clear running back one. They really didn't have much competition in Dallas at the time at the running back position. And I said, there's a clear answer, which is buy Tony Pollard right now, because he had some bad weeks. They weren't giving him the ball as much. Kind of looks like they were in a funk offensively a little bit. And I thought that they're going to snap out of this and they're going to start giving him the ball more. Boy, was I wrong about this one. Tony Pollard, in fact, I actually saw this one coming last week. After their game last week, I said, leading into this week, I said, Tony Pollard's going to be a very good running back this week because of the fact he's playing the Giants. I said, that's the only reason he's in my top 10 right now. If he was playing the 49ers, if he was playing the Jacksonville Jaguars, if he was playing the Cincinnati Bengals, the Philadelphia Eagles, this guy would not be a top 10 back for me this week. And I said, the only reason he's a top 10 back for me heading into week 10 is because he's playing the Giants. He couldn't even pull that one off. It's bad. It's bad news for Tony Pollard. And it's really one of the things that I've gotten a lot of comments about today is about the Tony Pollard situation. You go back and look at both of my videos today, and you'll see a bunch of what do I do with Tony Pollard? And honestly, guys, I really wish I had a good answer for this one. I really wish that I could come out here and say, there's still a way you could trade this guy and get some value. To be honest with you, at this point, I don't think many people want Tony Pollard. I'll tell you this way. I always like to put myself in the shoes of the person I'm trying to trade with, right? Because I think that's the best way to get trades done is if you put yourself in that person's shoes and see how you would want to be communicated with. And I think everybody should do that. And I think that's a proven way how you make successful trades in fantasy football. So one of the things that I really saw with Tony Pollard heading into the week, I said, this is a guy who I really think is not going to be good for much longer in fantasy football. And what I've been saying to people today, as I've been getting plenty of questions about Tony Pollard this week, I've said the same thing, which is I can't see anybody trading you real value for him. Now, you could trade Tony Pollard if you really wanted to get him off your team at all lengths, right? Like if you were just done with him and you would trade him for Josh Dobbs or Josh Downs, or Deonta Foreman. Like, there's people that would take that for sure. But the reality is that Tony Pollard is in such a tough position right now in fantasy because he's a guy that's got a great offensive line. The offense is humming right now. The upside on paper is there. The upside in games Not at all. Not at all been there. So there's a lot of issues here with Tony Pollard right now. I wish I had some answers for you guys. I wish I could just come out here and say we can get good value for Tony Pollard in a trade right now. That's not the case. Tony Pollard is, if you've got him, and I've got him in several best ball leagues, I've got him in several dynasty leagues. I get it. If you've got him, you really just have to hold him. It sucks. And I was wrong on this one, guys. So, yeah, this was a bad call on me to call him a buy low trade target weeks back because it's probably hurt a lot of people. The next thing that I got right here, and every single week, for those of you who are new to the channel and watching this video, every single week I do top 12 defense rankings in fantasy football for the particular week. I'm one of the only fantasy football YouTubers who does defense on a weekly basis because I think everybody should. I don't think defense should be a piece of content, a video that should be behind a paywall. I don't, because it's super valuable for you guys to win a fantasy football championship with it. And I don't think that any kind of top 12 rankings should be behind a paywall. Now, for me, there will be a paywall at some point, just to help support, the business that I'm trying to grow. And so that I could go full time to make the best content for you guys. But defense will not be on there. Top 12 defense rankings will not be on there. I do defense rankings every single week because I know the importance of defense rankings. And so every week when I do these videos, I like to come on here and discuss defense and what I got right and wrong about it, because I just love analyzing defense in fantasy football. Not only is it super important, but it's also a really easy part of the game for me because I love watching football. I love watching every single game that I can, and I watch football literally every day of the week. I mean, the games that I missed on Sunday, I go back and watch them. So, it's really easy for me to evaluate defense. And one of the things that, hindsight, of course, is always 2020 when you're talking about fantasy football, when you look back on it. And one of the main defenses that I had ranked very highly on my list this week, two of them, Indianapolis Colts and Cleveland Browns. Now, the Cleveland Browns were right there at defense number 12 for me this week. So it's not like I had them as a top 5 defense. I did with the Indianapolis Colts, though, and I got a lot of pushback for it. I got a lot of questions asking me, are you not concerned with the game in Germany? Those games have been unpredictable this year, and how can we count on the Colts defense? And I said, it's very simple, guys. The reality with the Colts defense is that they have some young, physical, athletic pieces on that defense. And I've been really watching the Colts defense closely all season. For those of you who have been watching the channel for the whole season, you'll know that there were several weeks during the season where I was like, this is the defense that is going to be great. And I was wrong a lot. And I was finally right in week 9 when they took on the Panthers. And I said, heading into week 10, it's the same thing, guys. Start them again because they're playing the Patriots. So on paper, and really when you watch the two play football, they're very similar offenses. Patriots and Panthers are very similar. Neither quarterback is playing good football in the slightest right now. Neither offensive line is good right now. Neither one of them has good weapons. And also, the quarterbacks, they turn the ball over. And it was another great play for the Colts defense this week. And I'm very happy about that. And I hope that the majority of my offense got to play the Colts defense. I think they were a fantastic play. And congratulations if you made the decision to play the Colts defense because, that was one that I was saying all week was going to be a really good play. And the Browns defense, they shocked me. I'll be honest with you. They shocked me how good they were. But I did say, in my defense ranking video, I said the Browns defense has a chance to be good for 2 reasons. Number one, they're a great defense. Nobody has to tell you guys that. You don't need me here telling you the Browns defense is excellent. They are excellent. But the number 2 reason why I said this could be a good week for the Browns defense unexpectedly is because of the fact that this is a divisional game and it's a situation where it's like in divisional games, things are very, very difficult to predict sometimes. And the Browns not only did very well defensively, they actually beat the Ravens on Sunday. So the Browns defense and the Colts defense Hindsight's 2020. I got a lot of pushback for my rankings on those two defenses this week. And very happy to say that I was, my analysis was correct on that one. But on the other hand, defenses that I got wrong, it's in the same matchup. I had these two completely flipped. I had the Jacksonville Jaguars as a top 10 defense this week. Really bad take. Horrible, horrible take. And the reasoning at the time was that, the reason why the Jags were there is because the Jaguars, when you looked at the matchup, their secondary had been so good lately, especially at creating turnovers. And Brock Purdy, the past 3 weeks, had been throwing lots of interceptions. So I thought I was going to be, feeling pretty good about that one today. I felt awful. I felt so bad because I know for a fact that there are some out there who may be listening, may not be listening. If you are listening, I apologize because I told you to play the Jacksonville Jaguars defense over defenses like the New York Jets, over defenses like the Cleveland Browns. Not a good call in the slightest. Jacksonville was a horrible play. And on the other hand, San Francisco was a fantastic defensive play. And they weren't even inside my top 12. So that was just a matchup that watching that game, San Francisco just bullied Jacksonville. I mean, they did not let Jacksonville have any signs of life. There was no enthusiasm at any point. There was no momentum being built. San Francisco got out to an early lead, and they kept their foot on Jacksonville's throats the whole time. That is just indicative of the San Francisco 49ers when they were at full strength. They're a hard team to beat. Not only a hard team to beat, honestly, a hard team to compete with. This is a top-tier team. And the Chase Young trade, this one could turn out to have a lot of benefits for the 49ers defense from a fantasy football perspective, because if they can keep having weeks like that, I don't think they're going to come out and beat every opponent 34-3 from now on. But I will say, if they can apply pressure to quarterbacks in the future games like they did to Trevor Lawrence on Sunday, the 49ers defense is about to be a very good resurgent defense in the second half. So, guys, you are watching tonight, or whenever you're watching right now, my live stream, what I got right and what I got wrong in Week 10 fantasy football. I do it every single week after the Monday night game to rehash the fantasy football takes I had, because I want to be transparent with you guys, go through what I got right, go through what I got wrong. And I want you guys to be able to see it live, because I want y'all to see the raw emotion, the unfiltered takes that I had and do have in this moment in time. So if you appreciate this segment right here, please go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So I got one more of each here. So this one I'm feeling really good about as well. And so for those of you who are new to my channel, what I do every single week is, obviously, I go through every positional group. I go through wide receivers, I go through running backs, defenses, kickers, tight ends, and I do rankings for the week. And at the end of every single wide receiver, tight end, and running back video, I pick my favorite, what I call underdog flex option of the week. And essentially what that is it's the best way to describe it is it's my favorite player to put in your flex spot that is not in my top rankings in the particular video. It's a player that I think can be played especially if you're very desperate, if you're in deeper leagues, if you've got injuries, all that sort of stuff. And this week, I hit on this one big time. The wide receiver that I chose as my underdog flex option of the week was Jaden Reed of the Green Bay Packers. And I said, going into the week, I said, Jaden Reed, this is a guy who has been, if you're not a Packers fan, you probably wouldn't know that Jaden Reed is the best receiver they've got. And Romeo Doubs has done well. Like, Romeo Doubs, I would say, is a more traditional wide receiver. Jaden Reed's a slot guy. But as far as fantasy football production goes, Jaden Reed has provided bigger boom games more often than Romeo Doubs has. And I said, Jaden Reed, is getting consistent targets. Christian Watson has not been a factor in eliminating Jayden Reed's target share. That has not happened. Jayden Reed taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers, a weak passing defense. I said this is a good matchup this week for Jayden Reed. And Jayden Reed had a great game. Jayden Reed had a fantastic fantasy football game. He got in the end zone again, and he had several more catches on top of that. Jayden Reed, here's the thing. Jayden Reed is about, last time I checked today, I think he's about 14% rostered in ESPN leagues right now. So long story short, not only do I think that you should be going to pick up Jayden Reed off your waiver wire and dropping someone like, a Miles Sanders or Dameon Pierce to do it, I think Jayden Reed can be one of those guys on a week-to-week basis, depending on what your injuries are like, what your bye weeks are like. And bye weeks will not be for much longer. Bye weeks are about to run out here since we're getting to the tail end of the season right here. But this is a guy that I do believe you can flex in a lot of situations moving forward. Green Bay, they've got a number one wide receiver here, and he's not an outside X receiver. He's a slot receiver that just happens to get open, and he's a big play threat, and his name is Jayden Reed. And on that note, the last thing I got really wrong this week, and this one's depressing. This one's kind of similar to the Tony Pollard take. Breece Hall is a guy that I've been big on for a long, long time. I've liked Breece Hall since Iowa State days. When he was at Iowa State, when he was in college, I loved the player. The player himself, the player profile, fantastic. Dude is a blazer. He's got the size of a 3-down bell cow. It's at 5'11", 227 pounds. And his vision, his athleticism, pass catching ability, all of it's there. Check, 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 check. You have no idea how badly I root for and want to see Breece Hall succeed on a weekly basis. I can't tell you enough how much I want to see this guy succeed. But the team that he's on severely limits what he can do on a weekly basis. And I said, coming into this Raiders game, I didn't see a way where Breece Hall wouldn't have a good game. I was like, there's just no way. He's taking on the worst rushing defense in the entire league. How does this not work? And when you look at what he did, and I watched that full game, there's just not enough rushing lanes being opened up for them because there's several reasons for it. Number one, they've got no passing threat. None at all. Zach Wilson is, it's hard to argue. There's a lot of quarterbacks on this list. I'll be honest, there's a lot of quarterbacks who you could say are the worst quarterback in the league right now that are starters. It's hard to choose over Zach Wilson because even Bryce Young right now, I would take Bryce Young in the future, no doubt about it, because I think he still has upside. I think he needs a lot of changes. But when I look at a guy like Bryce Young, I would take his play over Zach Wilson's right now because at least Bryce Young could extend plays at some times. I would take, Mac Jones is a different question. I don't know if I would take Mac Jones. He just looks dejected right now. Maybe the only one I would confidently say I would take Zach Wilson over would be Tommy DeVito of the New York Giants. That's about it when it comes to quarterbacks I prefer over someone like Zach Wilson, but good grief. The problem with Breece Hall is and will continue to be that the Jets have no threat of a passing attack any week. And the second problem of that is that the Jets' offensive line sucks. They suck. Even if Aaron Rodgers was playing, he would be having issues right now handling that offensive line. They're terrible. And those are really the ultimate problems when it comes to Breece Hall. Now, the good thing about Breece Hall, and what I do think is going to save his weeks a lot in fantasy football moving forward, is the fact that he is a pass-catching running back. That's what saves him. He's got pass-catching upside at the running back position, and he's just the type of player that if you get the ball in the guy's hands, he's always a threat to take it to the house. He's a threat to do a house call. So I reluctantly say that, in a lot of situations, I'm going to continue to start Breece Hall and advise my audience to do the same just because I don't want him going off for a big 80-yard touchdown run or a 65-yard screen run to the house. Those are always possible with Breece Hall. That's just the reality with him. So way wrong of this one this week. Breece Hall was not a terrible play by any means, but I had him at top 5. He was not that. Breece Hall was not a top 5 player this week. And that one was completely on me for just having too much faith, honestly, in the Jets' offensive line and for their ability to run the ball down the Raiders' throats when they've got no passing threat whatsoever. So that was what I got right and what I got wrong for Week 10 fantasy football, guys. I'm going to go ahead and sign off tonight, guys. I've got to make the top 30 wide receiver rankings video for tomorrow and also the top 12 defense ranking video for tomorrow. So I got to get up. I got to film those tonight, get those edited so you guys can have them out. So it's going to be a very late night, guys. So if you enjoy the segment or if you just support the channel, please go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to this channel, guys. I can't wait to see y'all tomorrow in tomorrow's videos. Very important videos. So I will see y'all then, and y'all have a good rest of your night. Peace.